City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of your number one talk show, City Talks with Reuben Abati, on your number one lifestyle station, City 1051 FM. On this show, we talk about stories of political and human interest that affect us all as Nigerian citizens and as members of a global human community. Today, we will be discussing the Southern Governor's resolve to ban open grazing in the entire southern part of Nigeria. And to guide us through this, to respond to this, to share his perspective on this, we have a special guest, Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed. Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed is the spokesperson for the Northern Elders Forum, NEF. Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, OON, BSc, MSc, PhD. He's an alumnus of various institutions, including the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, the London School of Economics, the University of Sussex, and is a Doctor of Philosophy and Politics. He also holds a certificate from the Kennedy School of Government, also from Harvard University, both in the United States of America. Dr. Baba Ahmed was a one-time permanent secretary from 1999 to 2009, and he has served the country in various capacities, ranging from the office of the secretary to the government of the Federation, also as director of the Federal Civil Service, also as advisor on parastatals to the governor of Kaduna State. He's been director, Joint Services Department in the Ministry of Defense, and so much more. He's currently an analyst and a columnist for various newspaper houses, such as Daily Trust and Vanguard, and is also the executive chairman, Kura Mandate Consulting Nigeria, in addition to being the spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can call us on 0700-1051-1051. You can also leave comments on WhatsApp 090-991-64403 and on our social media accounts at CT1051 on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. Well, on behalf of all our listeners and those who have joined us on Zoom and other platforms, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed to this program today. Dr. Baba Ahmed, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It's a pleasure to link up with you this time on radio. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I'm really delighted that you honored the invitation. Really, really excited. Well, quickly, Dr. Baba Ahmed, let's start with the meeting on Tuesday by the 17 governors of the southern part of Nigeria. They met in Asaba. Their host was Senator Ifeanyi Patrick Okowa, the governor of Delta State. And at the end of it, they came up with a 12-point communique. Now, some of the issues raised in that communique have generated interest. The principal one being the call for restructuring, 2, the call for a national conference, 3, the review of revenue allocation, and perhaps 4, in my view, the key controversial ones, the ban of open grazing of cattle in the southern part of Nigeria. All the governors were unanimous in saying that cattle traveling about on foot from the north to the south and, taking space in the southern part of Nigeria is a big issue because it escalates tension between pastoralists and farmers. What do you make of this, some of these recommendations by the 17 governors of the southern part of Nigeria?
Well, once again, thank you for inviting me to your talk show. It's a very rare event for me to be had in a place like Lagos. I'm here holed up in Kaduna after the Salabrik, but I'm grateful. The meeting of the 17 governors from the southern part of the country was quite significant in the context of what is going on in the country. We've, from the Northern Elders Forum perspective, we've taken note of the fact that it represents a major political initiative. There's nothing unusual about Southern Governors meeting. Northern Governors have had a Northern Governors Forum for a long time. So to have a Southern Governors meeting, a bipartisan meeting, bringing governors from all parts of the 17 states that make the southern part of the country. There's nothing unusual about that. What may be interesting and stand out may be some of the decisions they have taken. But still, let's remind ourselves, these are governors who are PDP and APC. Governors who represent regions that are conversing for the allocation or the transfer of power to their regions, the presidency to their regions under whatever party. There's a fierce competition going on between the western part of the country and the eastern part of the country and the south over who, in the event that any of the parties decides to zone political party to the southern part of the country, over who gets what. There are also zones that compete very fiercely over a lot of other things. But still, to have governors from that region meet and adopt common positions like this is significant. Of course, it is their right. Because of this issue, we have to pay very close attention to what they say. Now, regarding the farmers' herders clashes, there's no way in the northern part of the country that we would find fault in anybody saying there is a particular type of economic activity or trade that represents a threat to the security of their community, and therefore they will not tolerate. We will not quarrel with that. What is important is first, if you decide that you are going to ban a particular type of economic activity, you need to be sure that you have the law on your side. That is very important. We are a country of laws. The fact that you exercise power today doesn't mean you can just wake up tomorrow and decide that you don't want a particular thing and therefore you ban it. The second thing is you look at the decision in the context of other things. If you ban open grazing and the law supports you in doing that, you're banning also the movement of other Nigerians to earn their living in other parts of the country. And now, you need to interrogate that decision in the context of the constitutional provisions for all Nigerians to pursue their livelihood wherever they are. Assuming that, again, that the Constitution supports you in abridging the rights of Nigerians to move wherever they go, you also have to consider, when do you implement this decision? When do you implement it immediately? If you do that, what happens to the thousands and thousands of Fulani and other people who are right now in the southern part of the country? When do they repatriate? How do they repatriate? How do they remain safe until you actually put that decision in place? You notice that the decision didn't have a deadline, and I think that was a very well thought out decision on their part. I didn't see any reference to saying immediately, because then you will have to deal with the issue of, okay, how do these people live? If there are thousands of Fulani and their cattle in the southern part of the country who are involved in open grazing, and you meet today and say, stop it, what happens to them? How do they remain safe? How do they move away from there? They don't have a choice or option to open grazing. What happens to them? What timeline do you have for them to stop that activity? But above all, I think the most important thing to do is that I think we are losing our head. The North agrees, and the Fulani substantially agree, that open grazing is outdated, is outmoded, is dangerous to both the Fulani, to the cattle, and to the rest of Nigeria. That is agreed. We will not quarrel with the stoppage of open grazing. It should stop. It should have stopped a long time ago. The fact that it didn't stop is a failure of both leadership and unfortunately the short-sightedness of the Fulani and other people who own cattle. But it should stop. What we need to do is not to engage in these panic decisions, is to organize a systemic transition from open grazing to a settled form of grazing that allows people to own cattle, keep them in one place, and therefore shield people and the cattle from danger. A lot of people, Reuben, there are a lot of 60 or 70% of the cattle in the southern part of the country doesn't belong to northerners, for instance. It belongs to people in the southern part of the country who own this cattle. It's theirs. They own it. Some of them ranch it. Some of them don't. Some of them are herders. They give them to the herders to roam around with them. Many people don't think so. People think every cattle belongs to Fulani. That is wrong. So the people who own thousands and thousands and thousands of heads of cattle also need to prepare to keep their cattle in one place. Ranching is extremely expensive. So we will not quarrel with that resolution. We think that it would actually provide an impetus for northern governors and federal government to insist and assist in domesticating grazing. And we think that it's a good decision, but it must be handled with extreme care. We must not breach the rights of people in the process of implementing that decision. This is very, very important.
Well, Dr. Baba Ahmed, I mean, you've raised very serious issues, and some of those issues, some of those viewpoints have been echoed by other groups from the north. Take, for example, the Kulen Alan Cattle Rearers Association of Nigeria, the Kakran, insists that, yes, as you have pointed out, that there could be a violation of the freedom of movement, Section 41 of the 1999 Constitution on freedom of movement. But that section of the Constitution talks about every person, every individual, every citizen shall be entitled to move freely in any part of Nigeria. So the response from the southern camp is simply that, look, it's not the movement of the Fulani that is being banned, it's the movement of the cattle. So is it possible for us to make a distinction in this regard? And then you talked about politics. Politics, power. You think this is about the jostling for power ahead of 2023? If you could clarify that for us.
Well, let me say this. It's a very clever argument to say, look, we're not banning Fulani to move around wherever they want. What we're banning is the Fulani with the cattle. There is a Fulani, if you remove the cattle away from him, you're saying particular types of trade are not welcome. And that's basically what the issue is. You cannot conduct a particular type of trade in our area. We don't want that. So it's that argument that we're not banning Fulani, we're banning Fulani with his cattle. The Fulani goes with this cattle because the cattle needs to move around and feed. If you want to say not here, don't bring that cattle here, then we'll say, okay, fine, please show us the law that allows you to do that. We will not quarrel, we will not argue with anybody. Now, that's basically the argument of our Section 41. People are saying, no, the Fulanis are welcome, but not their cattle. And again, like I said, it's fundamental. It needs to be interrogated within the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And let me address the second question you raised. You said this might have to do with 20. Of course, it has to do with 2020. Do you understand the significance of 17 governors representing PDP and APC sitting together? Go beyond the resolution on the cattle rearing, on the Fulani, on open grazing. Look at the other resolutions. A lot of the governors there are APC governors. They are part and parcel of the government at Abuja. 90% of the issues they raise are actually targeted at the weaknesses and the problems of President Buhari's administration. And now you have the PDP and the APC governors sitting together saying, stop, cattle grazing must stop, you must convoke national security, governors are playing to a gallery. We understand politicians all play to the gallery. Everybody is now jumping and playing to galleries. The issue here simply is that governors are losing their grips on their local constituencies, and they're jumping on the bandwagon to be seen as people who are capable of challenging the political process to bring the presidency to, but they are part of the country. It must go to the south, and if it goes to the south, where does it go? It must go to the southeast because the southeast has never had a presidency. It must go. There are a lot of galleries that are being played at, and it is important for people to realize that. Again, we don't have a problem with that. We don't have a problem with that at all. It's perfectly legitimate. That's the way politicians do. But people should recognize the fact that you can politic in very dangerous grounds. And it is important to recognize also the fact that Those governors have boundaries. They have loyalties to their political parties. If the southern governors have abandoned their political parties, loyalty to their political parties, the positions of their parties in terms of, for instance, issues like national dialogue and restructuring, and they're now saying to Abuja, look, we don't care what the presidency wants, we don't care what our party wants, we must have this and we must have that. Then we need to recognize the fact that clearly some lines have been drawn. And I hope the people in Abuja recognize the fact that their governors are in open rebellion.
Well, maybe not quite, Dr. Baba Ahmed, because part of the communique from Asaba indicated that the governors are all calling on the president to work together with the state governments in the southern part of the country to ensure that ranching is established and that the grazing process is modernized as it is done in other parts of the world, rather than having the current situation whereby there is conflict between farmers and herders from the Middle Belt all the way down to the Atlantic Ocean. So now that you say that the APC governors are rebellious, does that quite rule out the possibility that the proposal about the ban on open grazing would not get would get any support from the presidency or the federal government?
No, Doctor, I'm going beyond the issue of open grazing. I've made the point. The governors in the southern part of the state have a right, and they are correct in demanding that the whole nation should look at open grazing as a national issue. We must all collaborate to make sure that it is stopped, and that it represents an existential threat that will continue to harass all communities. Incidentally, it's not just southern communities. Farmer cattle father clashes have been part of the northern history for a long time. We've known this a long time ago. It's also a northern thing. It doesn't just happen in the southern part of the country. So I went beyond that to look at other resolutions of the meeting. I didn't mean a rebellion in the legal sense of the word. I'm saying that there were elements of those communique that represents challenges to the positions of their party and their president and their government in Abuja that clearly says we're not on the same page with the president on the issue of, for instance, dialogue or structuring on a number of the issues that they made recommendations on. And I just made this observation. It is important to recognize the fact that that communique represents a major divergence between the governors and their party and their leader, who is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That was the point I was making.
Okay, but what's your point on their call for a national dialogue? I've had some people express the view, Michael Zekome, SAN to be specific, saying that, look, there's no need for any national dialogue, that the Buhari government should just go back to the 2014 national conference organized by the Jonathan administration. But basically, what's your take on the call for a national dialogue? Is it possible? Is it feasible? Is it realizable between now and 2023?
You can dialogue on anything. I think what we needed was a better specificity. We can dialogue on the weather. We can dialogue on crime. We can dialogue on the economy. I wish they were a little bit more specific. People assume that when you say, let's have a national dialogue, everybody understands that. Dialogue about what? The North has always supported restructuring. We believe, like other Nigerians do, that we need to engage each other, to sit down without abusing each other, without heat, without passion, without argument. We need to sit down and look at what is not working in the Nigerian federal system. We need to restructure the country. Federal government has consistently said, no. Go to the National Assembly if you want this done. We are not against that, but we will not do anything outside what the National Assembly says. Now, again, we say no, but we don't need the federal government to convoke a dialogue or a process where Nigerians engage each other in discussing what needs to be done. So when I read that communique, I thought there was some vagueness in terms of this issue about let's have national dialogue. National dialogue about what? If you want to say you want Nigerians to sit down and look at first, should we continue as one country? The consensus is yes, let's continue as one country. The second question is, in what form of a country. Then the third question is, what do we need to address specifically to meet that goal? Well, those things are important. Now, and then to go to the government and say, convoke a national dialogue. They know very well the position of the president. He says no. His people say no. We will not have anything outside the constitutional framework, which is to say, everything you want to do has to be done between the executive and the legislature. We will not convoke a national dialogue. So now that they're insisting that they have to have a national dialogue, it means either of two things. Now they've joined the bandwagon of groups like us who are saying you must compel the government to find ways in which Nigerians address their country outside the limiting framework of the legislature. Outside. Now that doesn't mean extra legal, it just means compelling the National Assembly to recognize the fact that its internal mechanisms, its processes are inadequate to address the issue of restructuring. And there's nothing illegal or wrong about having a national dialogue, but I just wish the governors themselves have thrown their weight behind groups like ours and other groups in the southern part of the country to say, can we help in making sure that we have some kind of a dialogue? But because we have said so, we've done this along with other socio-cultural groups in the country. We say Nigerians must talk. We must talk specifically about restructuring the country. That is what needs to be done. But I think that, again, we go back to this issue. There are just too many politicians pandering to small little pressures and dialogues around their communities. If they think that is the way out, fine, no, there's no problem. But there's a bigger fish to catch. And that bigger fish to catch is to look at the limitations of this government. If they can come to the president in the villa and say, Mr. President, please take our 17-point resolution. Resolution 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are absolutely non-negotiable. We must have a national dialogue. We must have restructuring. We must have this. We must have that. And we don't want any open grazing. Fine. But to release it like that and just leave it hanging out there, it seems to me as if it is just one of those things the politicians do so that they get a few claps from their community. Again, we believe that a forum that brings all Nigerians together, if we have to bring ourselves there, there's no problem. It's not illegal. A forum that brings all of us together, sit down voluntarily and discuss everything on the table is welcome, is needed, and it must be done before 2023.
Okay, Dr. Baba Ahmed, do you think that the resolutions of the southern governors will have been better received, better understood, if they had made the effort to reach out to their counterparts in the north before arriving at some of those conclusions? And I say that because, the opposition to that Asaba meeting has come majorly from northern opinion leaders. Professor Usman Yusuf, for example, was saying that what the governors of the South have done is totally irresponsible, that it is improper for people to organize a gathering in one hotel and then put a blanket ban on open grazing without consulting with northern leaders. Do southern leaders, governors, have an obligation to meet with their northern colleagues before they can express an opinion?
No. I'm not going in that direction. First, I don't speak for Professor Osman. He's my younger brother, and in many areas, I agree with him. I will give you my view and not his. Southern governors have a right to meet and say what they want to say anywhere they do, whether it's in a hotel room or whatever. It doesn't make it illegal unless you look into and then they actually make an illegal statement. What I think is that, to be honest with you, if there are major issues that genuinely require national support behind some of those resolutions, just self-interest alone and an awareness of the fact that most of the issues they raise there are national rather than regional. Self-interest alone would have dictated that they would say, look, why don't we talk to our colleagues? It is quite possible out of these 12 resolutions, we might be able to get a consensus for 10 out of the 12 of them. Not because southern governors have to consult northern governors, not because they have no right to do so, but because it is good politics to increase the level of inclusiveness and integration in terms of what you do. For instance, if they engage Northern governors and say, listen, guys, we are going to take a position now, all of us, Southern governors, against open grazing. We don't want to take you by surprise. You know our position all along, individually, and in many ways we have expressed this. We are going to ban it. We don't want a situation where we take a decision about open government, and then we have a division, a regional or ethno-religious division. We don't want this, okay? And it's possible they can come up with a position where all governors in the country say, stop open grazing, for instance. Stop it, and there has to be a program where it is stopped. And then let's go to Abuja and tell the president, Mr. President, we governors have all agreed we don't want open grazing. It is dangerous, it is outmoded, it is antiquated, it's a private business, it should not be supported by public funds, all those kind of things. Now, I think it would have been more stronger disposition. For the second issue about national dialogue, structuring, again, if they had consulted with Northern governors, they are likely to have found massive support on the part of Northern governors who also believe that it is time for the country to be restructured. So this way, you don't have just 17 governors saying, we want this important thing, and we don't want this, and we don't want this. The point I'm making here is that if you don't raise a problem and make it as if it is a regional issue, when it is actually a national issue, you should change yourself of the opportunity to create a consensus and a momentum behind the support for national issues. That is all. But I'm not quarreling. Northern governors have met. They have passed resolutions relating to the North. Nobody will quarrel with Southern governors relating. And I wouldn't support the argument that they have no right to do this. I'm just saying that engaging their colleagues would have been a lot more useful sometimes.
Well, Dr. Baba Ahmed, before we tease to a break on this program, what are your worst fears about Nigeria, particularly as we move towards another major general election in 2023? Is it secession? Is it, a further escalation of the security situation, which some people say, if we're confronted with that, we may have a situation in 2023 whereby we may not even be able to hold elections. What's your thinking about the doomsday predictions that many people are coming up with?
Well, first of all, I think that the most important threat to the whole of Nigeria right now is the weak central government, which is unable to address a lot of the fears and concerns of Nigerians around security. And too many opportunistic elements are feeding off that weakness. That is the most important thing. All this talk you see, all this, the resurgence of Boko Haram, the spread of banditry and kidnapping and the killing of state agents in the eastern part of the country, a lot of illegal activities around telling people to leave in the southwestern part of the country, the rhetorics about we don't want to be part of Nigeria. These things are opportunistic. They are feeding off the appearance of a weakness on the part of the federal government. One, to actually recognize the fact that there are issues that it must address in this country. Nigerians are unhappy about the way that their country is going. They are unhappy about how insecure they are. They are unhappy about the fact that they need some major changes and the government is unwilling to respond, it is unable to respond, or it just doesn't care enough. So that's my first concern here is a government that sits in Abuja saying, no, we will not do this, we will not do this, we will not do this. People are saying, okay, if you're not going to do that, then we will do this and do that. A lot of this talk about irredentism, about secession, is feeding off this. So what are you going to do? You will not address our concern. And we can actually concede and have a president that will do. So my position here is we need to have the elite in this country find a way to sit down and discuss this country. And one way or the other, get this government to accept the fact that it doesn't have monopoly over our lives now or in the future. That's basically what the issue is.
Well, Dr. Baba Ahmed, before we take a break and we allow people to make inputs or comments, I'd like to draw your attention to the front page of Saturday Tribune. That's the Tribune newspaper today. And we have this major story. Miyetti Allah blows hot. Fulani ready for Nigeria's breakup. Says enough of hatred for us. And then there's a rider. They are free to go to wherever their land is. Afenifere. Is there a conversation about the Fulani saying that the Fulani people are ready for Nigeria's breakup too? As as we hear also the same concern from the southwest, the southeast.
Doctor, one of the tragedies of this country, and it's a real tragedy. The first casualty of this crisis we are going through has been the Nigerian media. It's really, really sad. You and I have been part of this media thing for a long, long time. It is very, very sad that, of course, they say the first casualty in a war is the press, is the media, and it is the truth. That is what we're witnessing. That papers, for instance, let me tell you, there are about 6 or 7 different brands of Miyetti Allah. People talk glibly about Miyetti Allah as if it is just one organization. There are quite possibly dozens of Fulani groups. Now, anybody can get up and say, I'm Miyetti Allah. The Fulani needs community. The typical Fulani, let me give you an example from a northerner who has Fulani blood in him, who knows the pains and the aspirations of Fulani. The last thing a Fulani wants is conflict. You know why? Because he has to live in the community which is not his. He has to move around his assets, around communities which are not hostile. He needs the goodwill of people. He needs the support of people. The last thing a Fulani wants is war. The last thing a Fulani man wants is a hostile community. So what kind of Fulani will go around with this kind of rhetoric, saying enough is enough? Enough of what? The Fulani doesn't have land. Every land in this country is his. I don't mean he owns it. I mean, that's where he needs to feed his cattle. Now, if you say, don't come here, fine. He will go somewhere else. But if you can keep knocking him around and knocking him around and knocking him around and saying, we don't want you here, we don't want you here. And this is what happens in the parts of the north. You create the bandit. So what we need now is not this kind of rhetorics and papers that lead their stories. People will buy this paper and read it. So they've made a few naira from sensationalism, and quite possibly ask, if you get that reporter and ask him, which Fulani man said this? Which Fulani man would make the mistake of, the careless and irresponsible comment of saying, let us fight? With what would he fight with? The Fulani that is armed is not the Fulani we know. It's not the Fulani we want. We don't want a Fulani who is armed. We want the Fulani who would go around with this cattle in peace, meet people, and not necessarily cause a threat to people. The Fulani is not a threat to anybody, but there are criminal elements among the Fulani. They need to be checked, not just by people in the southern part of the country, but also by northerners. We don't want these people. So anybody they tell you is saying, oh yeah, enough is enough. We have pushed us around. Let us fight. Fight with who? Fight with what?
Well, on that note, Dr. Baba Ahmed, let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll take comments and reactions and contributions from our listeners and also persons who have joined us on our various platforms online. Here is the commercial break. We'll be right back.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Welcome back from that commercial break. And for those of you just tuning in, welcome to City Talks with Reuben Abati on your number one lifestyle station, City 1051 FM. And I remain your host, Reuben Abati. And today we're discussing the Southern Governor's ban on open grazing and their resolutions on Tuesday this week in Asaba, where 17 governors of the southern part of Nigeria met. And our guest today is Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, spokesperson for the Northern Elders Forum. Well, we've taken some time discussing with Dr. Baba Ahmed, and thank you very much, Dr. Baba Ahmed, for staying with us. We'd like to take some comments, some reactions by some of our listeners. There was a comment I saw earlier from Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi. He says, typically brilliant analysis from Dr. Baba Ahmed. But does he think nepotism has in any way played any role in the new rise of ethnic nationalism?
Want me to answer that question?
Yes.
Well, nepotism is bad by anybody, under any administration. The federal character inserted in our commission was specifically intended to prevent presidents from just surrounding themselves with their own people. And we should condemn nepotism under any guise. If there is grounds to suspect that the administration of President Buhari is involved in nepotism, it should be condemned. I don't think the issue is just that. It's simply that a lot of the responsibilities that he appears to entrust, very sensitive responsibilities, are given to people who don't have the capacity or the ability to do that. But in more specific terms, I think that what people need to do is to identify in specific terms what represents nepotism. If President Buhari's administration is nepotistic, it should be condemned. And believe me, if people go to court and challenge the administration and prove in a court of law that the federal character principle in the Constitution is being violated, believe me, a court of law can say President Buhari is involved in unconstitutional activities. That is more the way to go. But I think that sometimes we are too lazy in the way we approach things. I appreciate the doctor's comment, but I think that what we need to do is to take up this government in more decisive manners than the way we do it. Not ordinary street rhetorics, but serious, responsible interrogation of what they do right and what they do wrong. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Baba Ahmed, another question from Yemi Adeogun from the United Kingdom. He says, you are so particular about the rights of Northerners. Is Nigeria about the North alone?
No. Everything I say about the North relates to the South too. Right now, as I sit here in my bedroom, if I look out of the window, I see a family. My immediate family is an Igbo man. He has been my neighbor for 17 years. We just had a meal yesterday together. He's the best neighbor I can hope to have. He's a very successful businessman. He has lived in Kaduna for the last 30 years. He has a very thriving business. I will protect that man's right to live in the North, to earn a living in the North. The same way I would protect the right of the butcher in Port Harcourt and the Fulani Hada in Ebonyi or Ondo State. The same way, everything I have said about the rights of Northerners applies. There are thousands and thousands and thousands or millions of Igbo people living in the North, and they are fine. There are millions of Yoruba people living in the North. They're right. There are rights to be protected. There are rights to live in the North. There are rights to pursue their livelihood. It's sacrosanct. No one should abridge that. And we have said over and over and over again as Northern Elders Forum, no one in the North should even contemplate anything that suggests that because people say Fulani Hada lives the South, we should also say that some elements of Northerners, Southerners who are living in the North should also go. It's against the principle. We value the living of the people in the southern part of the country who live there. Here, we will protect them, not in a patronizing manner, because they have a right to be protected. Look, let me tell you something. There are people in the North who will tell you 95% of the drugs that are manufactured or brought in or sold in the northern part of the country are being done by a particular ethnic group. And there are evidence to prove that if not 95, but substantial amount of that drug is being controlled by a particular ethnic group from the southern part of the country. There are people who would like to profile that group and say, these are the people who are selling drugs to our people. Get them out of this way. And we have said to those people, prove it, and don't start profiling. Not everybody who is from that particular ethnic group is a drug peddler, they don't make codeine, they don't make rofinol. But this is very dangerous grounds. So the rights of the Northerner and the rights of the Southerner are the same. The basic issue is every Nigerian has a right to live and pursue lawful livelihood wherever they are. And this is where, if we start playing around with this right, we are playing a very dangerous game. And if we think that secession will just simply create countries where you don't have this problem anymore, we're making a terrible mistake. In a theoretical manner, even if you can break up this country, the West goes, the East goes, you will have this same problem because you have minorities and majorities. You are going to have different ethnic groups. You are going to have different religious groups. Nigerians can be very facile in the way we think. We think that secession is the solution to our problem. It is not. The solution to our problem is to recognize the fact that we have a failing nation. We have a leadership that will not fix the country, and we need to put pressure on that government to address these issues.
Well, Dr. Baba Ahmed, another question here from Olukemi Oludara. She says, can Dr. Ahmed also enlighten us when or at what point in time the northern governors have ever consulted their southern counterparts before taking decisions on issues that pose a threat to the lives and properties of southerners?
Well, the lady is asking the wrong person. I'm not a northern governor. I don't know how they do it. But I do know that there is something called the North Nigerian Governors Forum under the governor of Ekiti State, Governor Fayemi. I know they meet often, and I also know that they discuss matters of national interest. I would have thought that that would have been a perfect forum for the 17 northern governors to take this issue and insist that their northern counterparts listen to them. And as much as possible, the Nigerian Governors Forum should adopt common positions as much as possible. If it is not possible for them to arrive at a consensus, then they can then decide what to do. But there is a Northern Nigerian Governors Forum. It is led by one of the best governors we have, Governor Fayemi, and it's a formidable front for harmonizing views from the northern part of the country and the southern part of the country.
Okay, at this point, we'll take calls from our listeners here in Lagos. Who is on the line? Please, your name, your location, and your question for... Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, I greet Baba. My name is Ahmed, and my location is Mowe. I want to concur that the larger we are, the better we are. But that there are some issues that need to be addressed. Like this issue of the Fulani headsmen now that Mr. Baba is talking about. We have, for instance, here in the southwest, we have Amotekun. In the east, we have Ebude, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce.
Ebubeagu,
very good. Now, can't the Fulanis also set up a kind of group like the Amotekuns that can monitor these Fulanis within themselves in each of the states to avoid all of these crises? Because one of the major reasons why we are going through all of this is that these cows, they go into farmland and they destroy crops. And as we speak now, the prices of food are so high. A lot of the farmers are being killed when they complain. So, Mr. Baba, if the Fulanis themselves can also set up a group that can monitor them because they speak the same language, they can monitor them. I think that nobody wants the Fulani out of Nigeria, but the problem is that our food, supply is getting dimmer. So I want Mr. Baba to, talk on that.
Okay, Dr. Baba Ahmed has heard you. Dr. Baba Ahmed.
Thank you very much, sir. But you see, your suggestion is the kind of thing that if we have not lost our head and we have raised this issue in a calmer atmosphere, a leader would have said, "Look, call this Fulani. Can't you people organize yourselves better? We don't want to send you away. We believe that you should police yourselves first before we police you. Don't you think that there's a system you can impose?" This is when you engage people rather than just simply chase them away and harass them and intimidate them and demonize them. This is what you get. And the Fulani could give you one or two answers. We are sorry, sir. We are nomadic. We are pastoralists. We move around. We can't get policemen around us. Tell us what you want us to do or not to do. And the majority of us will comply with the law. If you find anybody who is breaking these laws, deal with them according to the law. This is the value of inclusiveness. But if you say, okay, completely, we don't want the Fulani at all. We don't want cattle Fulani because they are killing our people. They are destroying farm crops. Therefore, the solution is get them out of this place. Let them go somewhere. it's quite possible that most of them will go to the north. But I want to remind you, you will still have cattle. You will still have people who will need to graze cattle, whether they are Fulani or somebody else. Close to 60% of the cattle in the southern part of the country, believe me, sir, this is no propaganda. It does not belong to northerners or the Fulani. It's owned by people who own cattle, who are southerners, who live there. This is the simple truth. Everybody thinks every cattle there belongs to Fulani. A large number of businessmen and people and rich people in the southern part of the country now own huge numbers of cattle. Even when the Fulani goes with his cattle, you will still have the problem of cattle and farmers living there. Sometimes we tend to create the impression that if you remove a problem, you have solved the problem of crime. We don't. For Fulani can leave communities, that you will still have criminal activities going around, either around the cattle, around the farmlands, or around other communities that will take advantage of the absence of the Fulani. What do you do with your own cattle?
Well, Dr. Baba Ahmed, I thought the gentleman was asking whether or not we, excuse me, whether or not we have in the northern part of Nigeria the equivalent of Amotekun and Ebubiagu. And I'm aware that there's something called Shege Kafasa, which was set up by the coalition of northern groups. Is that not the case?
No. Reuben, I'm telling you, there's no such thing as Shege Kafasa. This was one of those flash in the pan thing that people just did for the photo ops. There's no group, there is no outfit that has been established in the north specifically to protect or police Fulani activities. There is none. That I can tell you. Many states have what they call LSAKai. And these LSAKai, meaning volunteers, are actually groups that deal with banditry and kidnapping. There's no group of the Fulani or for the Fulani or about the Fulani that specifically says we will police and make sure the Fulani don't break any laws. I don't think he was talking about the north. I think he was talking about Fulani who operate in areas where they call breaches and therefore they need to police themselves. But to answer the question, there is no group that will tell you today we represent a security organization to protect the Fulani and to protect people against the Fulani. There's no such group, which is the reason, again, why it makes it so easy for the from the federal government, some northern states that have land, we can ranch these cattle. This open herding thing is not a matter for this country to fall off, to die over. The North doesn't want open ranching either. It's outdated, it's antiquated, we don't need it. All we need is a political will, resources, and a very, very constructive engagement that will get the Fulani to settle in one place and make sure that his breed feeds. That's all we need.
Okay, we'll take another call. Do we have another caller on the line there? Hello? Hello?
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Please go ahead. Your name, your location, and your comment or question.
Okay, my name is Kenneth. I'm from Ikeja.
Please go ahead.
I want to greet your guest in the studio. He has spoken frankly in some areas, but I also think that in Nigeria, the biggest problem we have is a lack of values. We have lots of values. And I expect organizations such as that of Baba Ahmed and the likes, we need to really awaken the citizens. Let them know their right. We, the generation, upcoming generation, we don't even know about governance. So we talk as if we know exactly what to do without looking at the guidelines that actually guide us, guide our leaders as government. Looking at what is happening today, the major problem that are emanating or what metamorphosed into this crisis is coming from the local government. Do we still have local government today? We don't have any. The state governments are on holidays. Every bashing is going to the federal government. The local governments are not getting bashed. The governors are not getting bashed. That is why they were able to come together in Asaba to do their fanfare and put their concussion together. That is what I think. The governors are free. Nobody is talking to them, and they do not think that they are doing anything wrong. The citizens do not even know that they have responsibility to hold the governors accountable. The governors are not giving the local government the right to do what they are supposed to. We used to have forest guide those days who look at the bushes and all of that to protect the traditional rulers. What is their role today? The governors have pocketed them. Politicians will have to come to bow to governors before they are put in places and all of that. But I think Baba Ahmed and the likes, all these Afenifere and all that, we need to address issues that will have to touch us. Let us, we, the upcoming generation, actually know what we are supposed to do as citizens. We are not even doing anything. We are shouting, okay, if opportunity is given to us today, what are we going to do? We know nothing. We should be educated rather than coming together and be bashing President Buhari. I am from South. We should stop bashing President Buhari. This is the time to come together and support President Buhari for the sake of Nigeria. Because we need to deal with this problem from our home, from our roots. Parents are not taking care of their children anymore. We have left our children to go on the street and do whatever they want to do. Criminality, stealing. Look at railways. They are vandalizing railways that have just been built recently. Is that Buhari doing that? We are not looking at ourselves. Baba Ahmed, please, if there's possibility for you to run a campaign to educate us, the upcoming Nigerians, you were in government. The problem we have today did not just start with this government, it started with successive governments. I think, okay, we are waiting for tomorrow. The leaders of tomorrow, are we just going to come to power? Then we begin to accuse them. Are we not supposed to mold them now before they come to power? We wait for them to come to power before we begin to bash them. That is not right. I am a young generation coming, but I think I know this because of the value that I have, the way I was brought up by my parents. I think if everybody are brought up that way, everybody will know the right thing to do. They will know that their problems start from their home.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Dr. Baba Ahmed already got your point. Over to you, Dr. Baba Ahmed. Education, values.
Well, I agree with him entirely. The nation needs to bring a generation that hates less and thinks more positively. We need a nation, we need young people who are fed less on hate and negativism and prepared to lead this country out of this very difficult situation. And it's everybody's responsibility. He says, stop bashing President Buhari. We're not bashing President Buhari. We're saying that he's not leading. If there's a Yoruba proverb that says that if a child wants you to pick him up, when you bend down, he would open his arms. If the president needs help, if the president genuinely wants Nigerians to help him, there are millions of us who will work with him, who will support him, because we believe this country is ours. President Buhari would leave in 2 years' time, but what kind of country is he going to leave behind? So anybody who is short-sighted enough to think just criticizing President Buhari is good enough, then he's not doing this country a favor. What we need to do is to take a longer-term view. This is our country. The future is ours. And if we don't do it for ourselves, let's do it for our children and their children. The elite must get together. There are many things we need to do. We need to reinvent our values. We need to rediscover what kept this country going through difficult times. And we need to be hopeful. Thank you, Doctor, for giving me this opportunity. I'm really, really grateful.
So we'll just take one more question and then we'll wrap it up. We have one more caller on the line, I guess, who is out there. Yes, please keep it brief. We need to wrap up the program. Your name, your location, and your question or comment. Hello?
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 Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Reuben Abati.
Good afternoon. Please keep it brief.
Yeah,
we need to wrap up.
Songo.
Yes, from Songo.
I want to ask Baba Ahmed that because of that the president is not speaking out to the nation, don't you think that is one of the number one cause of the problem we are going through? Because we have a president that is not speaking. Only Garuba Shehu and Femi Adesina is not speaking. We didn't never put Garuba Shehu and Femi Adesina as our president. I think that is number one. Number two, quickly, you remember 1983 before the president, before Buhari was removed out of power. Go and read the speech of Dogo Yaro. It is because one, there's no unity. Number two, there's nepotism and no federal character principle. I think these are the things that you see playing again out in this present administration. What are we going to do to correct these lapses? Those are my questions. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. Well, you mentioned General Joshua Nimye Dogoyaro and the role that he played in 1983. I mean, he was first commander of ECOMOG, and he was also chief of defense staff at a point. He died a few days ago at the age of 80. May his soul rest in peace. We commiserate with the Nigerian Army and also the people of Plateau State. But let me now go back to Dr. Baba Ahmed on those two issues that the last caller raised. Dr. Baba Ahmed.
I think he's right. The president needs to speak more to the people directly. He's our president. We elected him, and he's accountable to us. He should talk to us more. I think his spokespersons are getting tired. They're getting exhausted, and it is not fair on them. He needs to be more visible. He needs to be more involved in what is going on. And for goodness sake, why can't he use his deputy vice president more often? He has an excellent, intelligent, forward-looking vice president. I don't know him very well, but the few times I've seen him work, he's an excellent deputy. If the president has reasons why his his visibility is circumscribed, he should use the vice president. The vice president is an excellent Nigerian. He can do a lot more for him. But the president, as our number one person, who we elected, and I repeat this, we elected him to work for us, should speak to us. Should speak to us more often. Should state why, for instance, he's against restructuring. He's against the convocation of national dialogue. He's not worried about what is going on. He is or is not worried about what Boko Haram is doing, what banditry is. We Nigerians need to know, and he needs to reassure us that our future is safe in his hands. If he can't do that directly, for one reason or the other, before he asks Gabashew or Femi Adesina, please use their vice president. That man can be used more positively and more productively. We want to see that. That's why the Constitution created the office of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He can do a lot more. He should be trusted. He should be allowed to take on more responsibilities. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed. And our listeners and everyone who joined us on all the platforms, that's all we'll be able to take. We've been on this for the past 1 hour. And I would like, on behalf of all of you, to thank Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. Many thanks also to all of you who joined us on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. But remember, the conversation does not end here. You can reach out to me on my social media account at Abati1990, both on Instagram and Twitter, and at City1051 on all social media platforms. For those of you who just tuned in or who tuned in late, well, no need to worry. You can visit the YouTube page City1051 to watch the entire show. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to tune in next week at noon for another exciting edition of City Talks. My name is Reuben Abati. The show was produced by Adedoja Allen, Abiodun Odunton, Ayodamola Oludara, Oluwaseun Adetitun, and Olanrewaju Onekwede Jr. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much. We'll be here again next Saturday.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.